What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're here for Week 11 picks and predictions in the NFL. Last week so far, we were 8-5 on the week. We're hoping to get to 9-5 if the Packers can beat the Eagles tonight. But our season total is 98, 49, and 1 on the season, bringing us to a 66.7% win rate on the year. I like to compare that with the best pickers in the world on the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em site. There's a guy on there at 112 and 34 on the season, which is a 76.7% win rate on the year. I believe he's been in first place for the last few weeks. But the two teams that we have on bye this week are the Colts and the Saints. Those are the only two on bye. So with that said, let's get into the Thursday night matchup here between the Jets at 2-7 at the Patriots 8-2. I have the Patriots moving to 9-2 after this game. The Patriots, they have the longest winning streak in the NFL right now. They've won their last 7 games. I will say their schedule has been a little bit light, but it is impressive nonetheless. Drake May, he's leading the MVP conversations right now as well. So you have to give some respect to the Patriots. I think the only way the Jets can try to win this game is by running the ball, but the Patriots have been really good, stopping the run all season long. It is interesting, though, that the Jets, they're on a 2-game winning streak, but I attribute the win last week against the Browns to special teams. So give me the Patriots to win this game at home. Then we have the Commanders at 3-7, at the Dolphins 3-7. I'm going to side with the minority here. Only 42% of people picking the Dolphins right now. I really do think this is a 50-50 pick'em game. I think anybody could win this game. It looks like we're going to get Mariota starting for the Commanders. But this Commanders secondary, this defense hasn't been great, and obviously they lost Lattimore in this secondary, which doesn't help things. I do have to say, though, I think the Commanders have played some pretty good teams in the last few weeks, like the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs. But nonetheless, they are on a 5-game losing streak. I think the Dolphins can edge one out here against them. I think they have a little bit more firepower with guys like Achane and Waddle. But it's going to be a close one. I think I was kind of looking at the coaching, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury versus Mike McDaniel. But it's hard to kind of get any separation in this game. Give me the Dolphins to win that game in an international game in Spain, the first game ever being played in Spain in the NFL. Then we have the Buccaneers at 6-3, at the Bills 6-3. I'm going to side with 81% of people picking the Bills. I think that number is so high because of all the injuries the Buccaneers have. They still don't have Mike Evans, still no Chris Godwin, still no Bucky Irving. So we got to keep an eye on that injury report for the Buccaneers. But the Buccaneers came off kind of flat last week versus the Patriots, coming off their bye. And you're looking at this game versus the Bills. It's going to be a cold and rainy environment in Buffalo. I think the Bills utilized James Cook, which they didn't utilize last week versus the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Obviously, this Bills defense, I think it can be exploited. I think that if Baker Mayfield has a day here, the Buccaneers could definitely win this game. But give me the Bills here to win this game at home. Then we have the Bears at 6-3, at the Vikings 4-5. Give me the Bears here to win this game with only 34% of people picking the Bears. The Bears, they've won their last 6. They've won the last 6 of 7 games that they've played. I think this team under Ben Johnson is, performing pretty well. And I think they just know how to win games right now. One thing I don't love here is that it is the second consecutive game for the Vikings at home, and this Minnesota, home field advantage is pretty tough. But I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're kind of a sloppy team. There's 8 false starts last week at home for the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy threw the ball 42 times last week versus Baltimore. They kind of abandoned the run game. I do think the Bears' defense can be exploited as well, but it's also going to get you turnovers. Give me Caleb Williams, who's getting sacked less, who doesn't throw many interceptions, to win this game for the Bears in a tough away game. I think that's going to be a really tough game for them to win, but give me the Bears to win that game with only 34% of people picking that. Then we have the Seahawks at 7-2, at the Rams 7-2. I think this is one of the games of the week for sure. A lot of good games on this slate. But once again, going with the minority, only 27% of people picking the Seahawks. Both of these teams are coming into this game on a 4-game winning streak. And I'm looking at the Rams. I don't think this is a great home field advantage in SoFi Stadium. And this is a short West Coast, trip for Seattle. And I'm looking at Sam Darnold, of all these resurging quarterbacks this season, like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones and Mac Jones. I think he's played the best. I think that there's going to be a kind of a play action threat in this game. I think that kind of limits the effectiveness of this Rams defensive line. Charbonnet and Walker are really solid running backs for the Seahawks that I don't think get talked about enough. And you're looking at Njigba, who's probably the best wide receiver in the league right now. And then you added Shaheed, for games just like this. So give me the Seahawks to win this game, not to mention Darnold only threw the ball 12 times last week versus Arizona. So I like that. I think he's pretty fresh coming into this game. Then we have the Chiefs at 5-4 at the Broncos 8-2. Give me the Chiefs with 60% of people picking them. The Chiefs are coming off a bye. They are also coming off a loss to the Bills. How did the Bills beat the Chiefs? They were able to pressure Mahomes. I think the Broncos can definitely do that in this game. I think the front seven for the Broncos is one of the best in the NFL. I think they have the most sacks in the NFL right now. And the Broncos are definitely a formidable team. They haven't lost at home all season long, which it kind of frightens me. But I still am going to pick the Chiefs. I think that Bo Nix here, I think he struggles against this Spags defense for the Chiefs. I haven't been all that impressed with Bo Nix this season. Give me the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to outscore them. Then we have the Chargers, my Chargers at 7-3 at the Jaguars 5-4. This is the first matchup the Chargers and the Jaguars are having since the playoff collapse in 2022 for the Chargers, where they're up 27-0. I think the Chargers take this game seriously. I don't think they downplay this game. Obviously, the Jaguars really do need this game with the Colts being in their division. But we saw last week versus the Texans, Davis Mills outplayed Trevor Lawrence. I don't think the Jaguars are getting all that much of a pass rush, which I think is a good thing for this Chargers beat-up offensive line. I think the addition at the trade deadline of Trevor Penning was a good one for the Chargers after losing Joe out for the season. And besides the Week 1 victory for the Chargers against the Chiefs, I think last week versus Pittsburgh, I think that was probably their best win of the year. So give me the Chargers to continue things, getting a win on the road. Then we have the Panthers at 5-5 at the Falcons 3-6. I don't love this game. I'm going to go with the Falcons here because 70% of people are picking them. But the Panthers did beat the Falcons 30-0 in Week 3 of this season. The Falcons, though, they're on a 4-game losing streak. They haven't looked good since beating the Bills, and they're coming off of an international, loss to the Colts. I think game flow for this game is really important. If the Panthers can get out to an early lead, I think that they can run the ball down the Falcons' throat. But give me the Falcons at home. I think they play better in Atlanta. I expect Penix, to do enough against this Panthers defense, throwing it on them with the weapons that he has in Drake London. So give me the Falcons. Then we have the Texans at 4-5 at the Titans 1-8. It does scare me a little bit that the Titans are coming off of a bye and it's their second consecutive game at home in Tennessee. But give me the Texans. The Texans shut out the Titans earlier in the season in Week 4, 26-0. I don't really think Cam Ward has anybody to throw it to, and this defense for the Texans is probably one of the best in the NFL this season. And even if C.J. Stroud isn't back for this game, I think that Mills is definitely a serviceable quarterback, especially with the targets that he has, like Collins and Schultz. Then we have the Ravens at 4-5 at the Browns 2-7. Give me the Ravens to continue getting wins here. 95% of people picking the Ravens. The Ravens are on a 3-game winning streak right now. It's also their third consecutive week on the road, which I don't love. But I don't really think that Dylan Gabriel is all that great. He doesn't inspire me all that much. This Ravens defense, I think it's been getting a little bit better, kind of under the radar, getting better. They haven't allowed a team to get 20 points or more in the last 3 weeks. I know they haven't played all that great of opponents, but still, I think they've been getting a little bit better. So give me the Ravens in that one in a tough environment in Cleveland. Then we have the Packers at 5-2-1 at the Giants 2-8. Jackson Dart, I think that he's a great player. I think that he keeps you in games. Obviously, he's been getting way too many concussions, been leaving games too early, and getting kind of injury prone. But and you're looking at this game, they fired Dable after the loss last week. I think the coach firing bounce is real. I think there's a possibility the Giants win this, but I think the Packers are a formidable team. Parsons is going to cause problems, I think. I think Josh Jacobs has a big game here. The Giants haven't been able to stop the run all season long, and Josh Jacobs, I think, is a very, very solid running back for the Packers. So give me them to win that one in New York. I will say, though, the Jackson Dart does play a lot better in New York at home. Then we have the Cowboys at 3-5-1, at the Raiders 2-7. Give me the Cowboys to win this game with 85% of people picking them. The Cowboys, they're coming off the bye. They have 3 days rest on the Raiders. The Cowboys defense has been horrible this season, and I think that Brock Bowers, he could give trouble for this, Cowboys defense too. But give me Dak to outscore the Raiders. I think the Raiders missing Jackson Powers-Johnson on the offensive line hurts them a lot, and I think that they're just kind of in free fall. So give me the Cowboys to win that. Those are my picks this week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back next week. See you guys later. Peace out.